Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's lap guide tutorial. This is for week 11 at Hockenheim for the IMSA series, so let's have a look around. So, short arms to turn 1, but you want to be already like running your left wheels on this, like just next to this runoff here, just like on the white line. But you want to be already aiming to like get the car over here on the left hand side. You want to be up on its outside curb. Obviously you can imagine like this just really helps wind up turn 1. If you just follow the white line in, it's quite tight. And especially in some of the cars, like you'll see for the Merc, for example, you want to be using the inside curb to cut over it to like maximise the approach into turn 1 on the exit. So obviously wide entry helps us do that. So on the approach to T1, you'll see up on the outside curb fully, 100 meter board and a 50 board here. So you want to actually brake anywhere around this area, like this section. You can go in a bit deeper, but obviously if you do that, you're going to be stopping the car a bit too much, which then just compromises the exit. But again, if you roll in a little bit early, you do run the risk of carrying a bit too much speed in, and then the car like pushing out wide and getting the off track on the outside. So is it kind of one of those you've got to just go with what you feel's best? You shouldn't really use it, but you can kind of see like this like darker patch of grass here on the outside. Normally, if you actually look at your replays, you end up braking around this point, so just before the 50. But a big key thing here is be a bit smooth on the brake and just like hold it at like 50% at most. Any more than that, you're just slowing the car down a little bit too much. Because what you want to do is you want to roll the maximum amount of speed from here up to the actual curb here on the inside of turn 1. The more speed you can roll here, the nicer the actual hit of this curb will be. So you trail brake it in. See, still trail braking in all the way into the curb. Biggest key thing though. So if you're using the curb for turn 1, so there's some cars which you will have to go around. So the Audi, for example, for me this week, I had to go around this curb to get the lap time. The Mercedes, the McLaren, and I think the NSX can just drive over this. The Ford especially can just absolutely monster this inside curb. So the biggest thing you need to do for this, as you can already see, you want to be on throttle really early. You want to be on throttle and build it up as you get up to the curb. So as we strike the curb here, so we go chase, right wheel's fully cutting over, left wheels are just staying within the track limits here. But the key thing is having this throttle on. You see we're already very aggressive on the throttle when we hit this. What this does, it helps the car when it lifts up. And when it lands, you've already got enough power, it doesn't bounce as much. If you're bouncing on the exit, normally it's because you hit the curb with like too little throttle, and when it lands the compression, it just throws the car off. So the more power and the more throttle you can actually have on when you hit this curb, the better this will be. You see it cuts over this, and as soon as I land, the car just sinks back into the track, back on 100% power, and let the car run out wide. The off track here is a pain. I think everyone will experience that in a week, unfortunately. But normally, if you can balance this correctly on the exit here, so balance it 100%, you shouldn't really run the risk of going too far wide. As long as you're back on the track before the end of this, I believe, like you got your wheels here, then you won't get the off track. Short run up to turn 2, but turn 2, this is a very, very wind dependent corner. So for the hot laps and the data packs this week, we had a tailwind into here, so we had to brake a bit more progressive into here. But this corner is very, very tailwind specific. If you have a tailwind into, you have to brake a bit earlier. If you've got a headwind, you've really got to send it in. It's a really tricky corner with that, so just keep an eye on that this week, because it will change probably knowing iRacing. But the main philosophy of this corner, so you see here, you got the orange marking on the Armco barrier here. So where this runoff is, so it's between the 150 and 100 board. This will change, like I said, if you've got cars in front of you, if you need to lift and roll in, or on a hot lap and you've got a headwind. So this will change a little bit. But normally, you see I lift off now, brake. The biggest key into here is not to overstop the car. Very easy to get up to like 80-90% brakes, you think it's a bigger stop than it is. You've got to roll as much speed as you can from A all the way up to B, so from here up to the curb. Similar to turn 1, you've got to try and roll as much speed as you physically can on the way in, which then helps the exit when you build the power back in. From here, you'll see already aiming to get the car on the left-hand side again. We go chase. Left wheel just on the outside curb. Again, be a bit wary of this one. It is a very easy run-off curb here on the outside to dip a wheel on the outside onto the dirt and then snap the rail on the way in. So just be a bit wary of that. It's a very silly mistake to do, and it can cost you an entire lap. So just be a bit careful of that. But brake a nice straight line. But you see, my braking, it doesn't change. It stays around like 65% on the way in, as we're pulling the downshifts. Early turning, but you want to roll as much speed as you can. You see, actually, you're almost fighting the car on the way in because you want to roll as much speed as you physically can on the way in. So when you try and get on the power of the sausage curb, the build-up is a bit easier. If you slow the car down too much and you try and build a throttle up here, the car does move around a lot on exit. You'd probably notice that in most of the cars you drive around here. It's such a tricky corner on power, so you've got to try and roll as much speed in to help, almost get around that issue. Try to break it in. See, on power pretty early, but the key thing here is you want to get nice and close to this curb. Well, nice and close to the sausage curb, sorry. But you don't want to be hitting this curb. Just use the flat part. If you're dipping a wheel and bouncing onto this, all that does is just spit the car out here. If you're hitting and clobbering onto the curb here where my cursor is, you've gone in a little bit too early, you've stopped the car too much, and you bounce on this curb, you try and pick the power up, and it throws you out wide. Normally, if you hit this curb, you end up where my cursor is, out here on the exit, which you can get away with for a few laps, but in the racing, when the tyres slowly drop off in traction, it's just terrible that on the exit. So very key, keep it nice and tight here. On the power already, 75%. But you want to try and keep the car over to the right. When let the car naturally run over to the left. Don't want to be out here. Realistically, I think this is, again, a bit too far over to the left for in a race stint situation. Because you're leaning a lot more on the left rear here because of that. Normally, you probably want to keep the car a little bit over. So I'd probably say around here. I think this for a hot lap is absolutely fine. In the racing, you want to keep it a little bit over to the right hand side just to keep that left rear in check. And simple from here, 100% throttle, cut over left, just be a bit careful of this, especially lap 1 on cold tyres. It happened even before this update, but the amount of people you see spin here on lap 1 because you cut over this curb thinking it's absolutely fine and you just dip a wheel into the dirt here and it just hooks the car. So just be careful of that. It's such a silly and stupid mistake people make. So just be a bit careful of this, especially on lap 1. Bring it straight back over to the left hand side. You see many people just driving in the middle. Just keep it as tight as you can. Follow this curb around. And up to the hairpin. Already you can see nicely marked out for us. So braking wise, you'll be aiming to brake and do all your braking at where the curb starts here. At the curb starts, build the brake in. Initially, you want to go 80%, 75%, and then you want to build it up to about 90 on the way in. If you try and use 90 initially, you just stop the car a little bit too much too early. Almost you see how the tarmac changes colour from this grey to the dark grey. This area here is with a lot more grip on the way in, so it just stops the car too much if you do that. Also, one thing I would say, avoid using 100% braking here. It's so easy to do and it just kills the front tyres, so just be careful of that, especially in the long runs. But again, up on the outside curb, use all the road on the way in. You see we're peaking now at 95 actually on the way in. Use all the road. Past the 50 board, you want to turn in pretty late, almost once you pass this orange mark here on the outside. When you're driving, you don't really notice it, but you want to go with this pretty late. Try to rake it in, down to first. I missed the curb here a little bit on the way in, but you can actually get away with cutting your right wheels over this curb. It just means you've got to wait a little bit longer. So if you want to go to the corner a bit earlier, you need to use this inside curb to maximise the rotation. If you V the corner off like I've done here, you can actually miss this curb initially, and then get back on power, no problem at all on the exit still. The biggest thing with on the exit, you've got to build the power in slowly. So 60% initially. As soon as you start to unwind the lock, build up to 80, 90, and then once you're 100% off the lock, so aiming straight, so way before this yellow sausage curb here on the outside, 100% throttle, use all the runoff on the outside, gives you a nice exit. I would say using this runoff depending on the car. The Mustang, the Merc, and I think the NSX you can get away with using this runoff. The Audi, you couldn't. You bounce around a lot on this outside curb, so just play around with it. You don't lose anything, actually, between using this sausage curb here on the outside or just using the flat part here. You only lose it if you're in between and you're on the ridge part here. It actually kicks the TC in on the exit. But you see, like that, on top of the sausage curb like this is absolutely fine. Then from here, got a nice little run up to turn 8. So turn 7 is flat out, just use all the road on the left on the entry, cut over the right curb, but key to bring the car straight back over to the right hand side. Don't dawdle and like be lazy and keep it over to the left hand side. You need to bring the car over to the right hand side so you can brake in a nice straight line. So you bring the car over, brake in a nice straight line here. Braking wise, I would say you brake. So normally I use actually this the reference, so the outside curb here. When this ends, you want to brake. This to me is sometimes a little bit early if you brake where this curb starts. But the key thing here, be nice and smooth. It's quite a heavy brake initially. You actually peak at like 80, but you need to come off it straight away back to like 60. Trail brake it in up to the 50 board. Early turning. Down the gears, early turning. You see we're slow releasing the brakes on the way in. But the key thing here, you want to actually, as soon as you get into this curb, be on power. So we'll chase, you'll see. As soon as we're at this curb, on power. And what this does, it just rotates the car, but also keeps the car rotating over to the left hand side. If you roll into here and just like don't pick the power up till like now, the car understeers ever so slightly wide at this point here. And then as soon as you probably notice when you drive, as soon as you're past the middle part of this like part of the track, you just get so much oversteer and slipping you can never get on power. Especially in the race, you can see here already there's like a load of marble build up. If you get a bit of dirt and marble build up out here, if you dip a wheel past the center point here, you're going to have no exit and you're going to be sliding around. So it's very key to be nice and tight on entry, on exit, sorry, as well, but build the power in. So be early on the power. So now, hold it, and then as soon as you get the lock off, even now I'm not 100% power, I'm still waiting, then 100. It's just be very, very patient. The more patient you are here on throttle, the better the lap time will be, and the better the tyres will be over a race stint. It's very easy here to get on power too early and lose like half a tenth. But also if you slip here, it makes this right really, really tricky. It makes it very on the nose for some reason. So just be a bit careful of this. But from here, bring it over to the left. Cut over the left hand side curb. Just your left wheel's on top of the seam. Don't dip a wheel into the gravel or the dirt here. If you do that, the car actually just like, the left front just like dips into the ground too much and it just stops on the way in. Which then makes it really awkward when you try and turn it in over this right hand curb here. Biggest thing though, as soon as you come off the curb, drop the throttle to help the rotation. But you want to keep the biggest thing between the left and the right, you want to keep the throttle on. If you fully come off the throttle, the car's going to go straight and there's going to be no rotation. Just keeping this little bit of throttle on just helps with the diff, just keeps the car rotating into the corner naturally. And then you want to slowly build it up. But then into here, you want to just cut over this ever so slightly. You used to be able to actually like fully drive over this. This season, and with how the cars are, you just want to hook inside, so where there's like seam is between the AstroTurf and the actual curb here. This you can get away with absolutely fine. But the main thing is you build the power in, and as soon as you come off the jump of the curb, 100% power, and you should be here. If you're understeering out here, you've got on throttle too early, you've just tried to commit to it. And normally as well, that's if you've actually hit this curb at like a more of a straight angle and it's bounced out wide. So if you're bouncing out wide and ending up out here, you've just carried a bit too much speed in, you've tried to hit the curb like how you used to, and it's bottomed out and gone out wide. So you know you've done this absolutely right once you get to like the middle part of the sausage curb here on the outside. Then into the stadium section, right up against the wall on the way in, use all the road. No real reference, unfortunately, it's kind of a feeling corner. But the biggest takeaway, be nice and smooth with the braking. Very soft, even with the steering, be nice and smooth on the way in, no aggressive movements. With that will cause the car to move around and get loose. Nice and smooth on the brakes, trail brake it all the way in. But again, similar to turn 1 and a lot of the corners on this track, you want to be on power before you actually get to the curb in the corner here. Right wheels now are just about going onto the curb. Now we're fully cutting over the curb. And now, like as you can see, we're pretty much absolutely centre. Half a car, half a car. And what you're going to do here, hold the steering lock and just hold the power. And as soon as you come off the curb, then you get back on 100% power. And you see we're right up against the seam of the gravel here on the outside. Normally, if you're trying to get on the power now, like mid-corner, this AstroTurf is really slippy and the car just slides. Normally, if you're sliding around mid-corner here, it's because you got on the throttle a bit too late. You need to be on the power very early, build up as you go over the curb, then 100% on the exit. Do not try and get 100% now, because that will just cause the car to understeer, and then you end up in the gravel. And with this season, with how the gravel is, you lose so much time then from here to the hairpin. See, use all the road, very good chase, you see, we're literally just getting it. We're actually dipping a wheel here, but it actually never really affects us on lap time, or you actually feel the performance drop. So this is like the most you'll ever use. Then straight into the next hairpin, straight up to the right, braking just before the 50 board. Key to be pretty smooth with the braking here, like 50-60%. Trail brake it in. But the thing I would say is bring it into the corner very early. Don't try and veer this off at all. The tighter you are here, and you want to almost follow the white line all the way through. The tighter you are here, the better the actual exit will be. You can actually almost see it here. How much like dirt and marbles is out here, especially in the middle of a track, similar to turn 8. As soon as you're a little bit wide here, you can get no exit. You fall out of the seam of the track, as I would say here, and you can get no traction then. So be nice and tight. So tight on the way in. Let it roll a little bit away from the white line, just because if you try and get the power on whilst you're on the curb and white line, the left rear just slips a little bit. So just bring it away ever so slightly, but you see we're avoiding this part here. We're avoiding this top part here completely. Bring in the power. Nice reference to use wherever like the fuel can is here, where the oil can is or whatever. This point here is centre about on the power 75%, and then mid to exit once you get off the curb. So once you're past the exit of this, then 100%. And with that, it just lets the car just gradually run out wide here, and you're only running half a car width here on the exit. If you're bouncing around full on the outside curb here, you can get away with it maybe for 1 or 2 laps, but in the racing you'll just spin on the exit doing that. So just a little bit over the right hand curb, fully cut over the left, aiming to keep the car over to the left hand side or the middle. Do not try and cut over this and keep tight here. It just then makes the next corner of the T16 really tricky on entry. All you're doing here is widen the entry up to the last 2 corners. You see, up on the outside curb, trail brake it in, but you want to roll a lot of speed initially into the corner. If you over brake here and you try and get on the power too early here, you just develop a lot of understeer and push out wide. So you're going to naturally roll a lot of speed in and just balance it with a very soft brake into here. Trail brake it in. Mid corner. You see we go chase again. Mid corner now. Up on the power. And you want to be building the power up where you get to this yellow line here. And just hold the power. Hold it. Nothing too crazy. It's a very much so going on, off here. Unfortunately, just how to get the rotation. But you see we'll peak it about 80%, 70%. Key thing I'd say here. Left wheels, I would say always you want to dip a wheel here. It just helps widen the entry up to the last corner. If you're here, let's say, it just makes this really tight, and when you hit this curb, it's very on the edge of if the car's going to hook it or bottom out. So with you just using this outside runoff here, it just allows you then just to keep a nice natural rotation on the way in, but also look at the angle we actually hit this inside curb at. See here, cut over the inside curb, build the power in 100%, and with that you just let the car run out wide. If you don't use this runoff curb on the outside, like the drag strip here on the outside, this is just too tight, and you just run the risk of just bouncing here. So I would say just get used to doing it. You can get the off track if your right wheels are just off the white line, so it can be very on the edge, but to me you gain so much on the last corner with it. It is worth doing. And with that, that's a lap completed for Hockenheim this week.